Where'd you get these two guys from?
You're very welcome along to episode 27 of the Tackling Sport podcast. Daniel here, once again joined by my brother Sean.
How's it going?
And we've had a busy week so far. We had our first sports review, weekend review, and we also had a chat about the GA club and county split. Those are in your podcast feeds now. Do check them out. And we've also got a really busy show lined up this week. So later on in the show, we're going to start our Premier League predictions, Sean. So we've got a couple of guests coming on. It's winner stays on every week, and just a bit of crack and I guess a good preview to the Premier League's action.
Yeah, get different people's takes on it. You know, some people support different clubs and have different opinions, and that's what sport is about, all different opinions, and we're going to give a chance to some people to have theirs aired on Tackling Sport.
Absolutely, yeah. So if you can get a bit of momentum and just be on it every week, it's no harm. So we're going to go talk a little bit about the Premier League first, Sean, in terms of preview to the weekend. United have a game away to Brighton. I guess a really slow start. It was referenced as walking football by a lot of people. Ollie, does he need backing in the transfer market, or do United need to make a more dramatic approach and look for a new manager?
No, well, I don't get this whole Manchester United needs to spend money in the transfer market. They've spent the most money, I'd say, out of anyone in the last 6 or 7 seasons. You think about the wastage of money, the likes of Falcao and Di Maria, who probably, you could argue, never really got the chance to shine at Manchester United. I don't think spending is the issue there. Is their squad a couple of players short? Potentially, yeah. But do they need to, play better? Yes. Are they making use of what they have at the moment? Probably not. And that comes down to the manager. That comes down to his backroom staff and the coaching there. So,
do you think it's up to scratch? Like, do you think Ollie's the right man to take United forward?
It's a hard one because I think United will find it very hard to sack Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, club legend, someone who's been around the club an awful long time. There's also like Mike Phelan involved in the backroom staff there, someone that's revered at the club. So it's going to be very hard for them, and I don't think it'll be taken well if they do sack him by not only the fans but ex-players and people in the media. So I don't think they're going to sack him. So the onus is on Ole Gunnar to he's got given time, and time is not what most Premier League managers have. But at Manchester United and the way it has fallen for Ole, he's lucky in that sense. He's got time. I don't see them sacking him anytime soon. So he's got to really improve this group of players, and the performance against Crystal Palace, they're a little bit lacklustre against Luton in the week in the Carabao Cup. So, the pressure will start to come on Ole Gunnar, and it'll be interesting to see how he deals with it. Champions League football though this year, so that is sort of the litmus test for him. If they can get results in that, it might kickstart them in the league.
I was just I understand the excuse of a lot of players, couple of players tested positive coronavirus, but look, if you look at and they had the shorter pre-season and they're a game behind Crystal Palace, but you look at that Manchester City performance against Wolves, there is no excuse. Those excuses only get you so far, and it just struck me straight away that this is the old United problems where they can play against teams that dominate the ball, but if you're away to Manchester United, let them have the ball, let them have 76% possession, and they're not going to be able to score because they don't have a style of play that Ole Gunnar has instilled in the team. Whereas you look at other managers that seem to be able to implement their style, and it feels like they're going places. With that performance, it felt like United were going backwards to that style of football. And I guess thinking back at post-lockdown, where a lot of those wins against teams that maybe attacked them, or a lot of those wins against teams that weren't playing for much, you could argue that could be the case. United did well to finish 4th, but my concern for them is I think down the line Ollie's just going to have the same problems where there is no pattern of play. So when teams just park the bus or play on the counter-attack like Crystal Palace do, that United won't have any answers.
And you can't rely on the likes of Bruno Fernandes to get you out of that trouble, and it'd be very interesting to see how he does this season. Does he replicate the levels that he did last season? But Manchester United, exactly, you're right there. Teams know how to play against them. They'll sit back, and they'll counter-attack Manchester United. And Manchester United, if they do try and play a little bit more possession, which probably isn't in the team's DNA, they're very gettable at the back. They haven't got an awful amount of pace. Wan-Bissaka, is he the quickest? Probably not. Lindelof, Maguire, no real pace there if Luke Shaw plays again. So they have vulnerabilities at the back. And teams like Crystal Palace with pace, Ayew, Zaha, Townsend, they'll just cut Manchester United open, then United will concede an awful amount of goals against those teams if they do and try and play a more possession-based football and play a higher line. Because I remember when Paul Merson was talking about Harry Maguire, and it was kind of an infamous sort of rant. Merson was saying Maguire is great because he can sit there and he'll head balls away and he'll block shots, but then once you put him on the halfway line and the ball's going over for Aubameyang and Aguero, that's where the issues come, and that's what happened against Crystal Palace. And what's to say it can't happen against Brighton, that the pace in Conley or a Trossard or a Mopé, and it's huge vulnerability at the back for Manchester United, and something you could argue, had they addressed it, well, they spent 80 million on Maguire. I think Lindelof was 30 million.
Well, just on that, like, Manchester City were in for Maguire at the time, people forget, so it wasn't the case that United went out of their way. You know what I mean? He was a centre-back that, Pep Guardiola was going to be happy to have on the halfway line for Manchester City. But I do agree, he doesn't have the pace and when they do play a high line, but
it was also after Alexis Sanchez, and
that's a good point.
And
actually,
I think if Guardiola wanted those two players, he would have got them. And I think, he probably was in for him and probably liked his ability on the ball. But if Guardiola wanted him, he would have got him. And it's the same with Sanchez. And so maybe we'll see how they get on. But the higher line and the more possession United try and play, the more danger they have at the back. And DeGea is not, it's a big season for him as well. Dean Henderson made his debut. Made a couple of good saves against Luton. Yeah, made his debut, and he'll want to play first team football because he'll want to start for England going forward to the Euros next year. So it's an interesting.
Is it a question of when rather than if he gets in?
I don't think it'll be this year. No.
You don't think it'll be this season at all?
No, because I think if it was, then maybe they would have, parted companies with DeGea and probably got a little bit of money for him, and maybe invested a little bit better. But for a team that finished fourth last year or third even, and were really impressive in doing so, they haven't got off to a good start, and there's a lot of vulnerabilities there, and I just don't know whether Ole Gunnar has the experience to deal with them.
Yeah, well, and the ironic thing, after saying all that, they're playing Brighton, a possession-based team. You could argue they're probably going to get on a little bit better this weekend. I think Brighton away is nearly an easier game for United at the moment than home to Crystal Palace. And yeah, the likes of Lamptey, Connolly, Mopé, Brighton have started well, so it'll be an interesting game. Moving on, quick word on Ancelotti. If Everton Palace, it's a big game, or Palace Everton, sorry. It'd be big for either manager to get off to a 3-0 start, but I guess someone like Ancelotti, he's used to winning leagues all the time, and if he gets Everton on a roll, they can really kind of challenge for a top 6 place early on, and I guess a good start for Everton can really kind of set the tone for the season. So you can almost feel like, well, they have already got off to a good start no matter what happens on Saturday. It does feel like if Everton can just get a win, the momentum builds again, and it's different to other seasons. I'm not talking about them finishing top 4 or anything, but it's different. It feels a bit different already. I can't remember the last time Everton went 3 wins in a row at the start of the season. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and sort of teams like Everton and Wolves and probably where they fall down in comparison to the other top 6 teams is, those big runs of wins. When you have the momentum, you've got to grasp it and you've got to keep winning games. And, in this season, games are going to come thick and fast in cup competitions and leagues. So if you can get on a winning run, it'll be so important for them. And I think, Everton, where they've fallen down as well in other years, is sort of losing games where they should have won. I know Jordan Pickford made an error in the cup there last night. So things like that.
Is that a position they're going to have to sort if they want to be challenging for the top 6?
It is and it isn't. I think Jordan Pickford for where Everton are is probably a top 10, top 8 goalkeeper. Still vulnerable to the odd mistake, but overall, I think he's okay. If they want to go even further, probably he needs to be addressed, and Ancelotti won't be afraid to address it. They paid big money for him. 30
million at the time, but that was big money at the time anyway.
Yeah.
The frustrating thing is he can do it. Some of the passes he had at home to West Brom there last week were really top notch, as good as Ederson. But then at other times he was doing stuff that Ederson or Alisson wouldn't do in a million years.
Yeah, and Ancelotti will he's been there, nearly close to a year now, or just short of a year, and he'll want to address that as well. He can't have someone as vulnerable as Jordan Pickford is at times playing a goal for him. And no matter what happens, a poor performance from a goalkeeper can kill any result. So it's going to be, for Everton, if they do want to break this sort of top 6, even to get top 8, they've got to win these games, and they've got to go there and put in a performances and a convincing performance and come away with a good solid 3 points. And if they do so, all of a sudden they're 3 from 3 and really in a really strong position.
Absolutely, yes. So looking forward to that game. Top of the table clash, 3:00. West Brom home to Chelsea. I suppose this is again it's a common theme here. I keep saying big game, but Frank Lampard, they were quite poor against Liverpool overall. You could say, you could argue the red card was the turning point, but it did feel that Liverpool were we're pushing it. And I remember a clip from the game, and we were watching the game, Sean, and Kante got the ball in a forward position and turned back. It almost feels like he's playing a role that doesn't suit him, and that was an attacking position. Another player might have gone forward. So how did Frank get the best out of this team? Like, what formation would you go? Where would you play Havertz? What would you do with Mason Mount? There's other players to come back in, the likes of Chilwell as well, and Ziyech.
Yeah, well, we've spoken about it before, where I don't think Chelsea have struck a balance in that midfield. I think there's a few players that are probably not playing for the right team and sort of what Frank wants to do with it. He tried Loftus-Cheek against Brighton. It didn't work, which I was surprised about, because I think someone like Loftus-Cheek can work in that formation and work for Frank Lampard. Whether he gets given game time, we'll have to wait and see. I like Jorginho. I think he's quite good there. He can sort of play your holding midfield. Kovacic or Loftus-Cheek can play your number 8, your sort of box to box, and then whether he plays Mount through the middle, whether he plays Havertz, who got a hat-trick in the cup against Barnsley, and then Pulisic, you got Werner, you got Ziyech to come back. So there's huge opportunities there for Chelsea if they can get that midfield right. And looking at it, I'm not sure Kante gets in that side, and even at times, has he got enough quality going forward to play a box to box? No. We saw that in the weekend where he had a chance to drive at the Liverpool defence. He didn't take it. He's not comfortable playing that role. He sort of likes to play in a team that doesn't take an awful lot of possession. Maybe press high and win the ball high up the pitch. Is
Kante that good a player that you should kind of tell your team to make sure he gets in that team in his best position?
2 or 3 years ago, I would have said yeah. I would have said absolutely.
But is his form at the moment purely down to being played out of position at Chelsea, as opposed to him downgrade, not quite at his peak anymore? I do feel that it's because the managers haven't been getting the best of him now, but has been a couple of managers that played him in that position. I just think he's playing too far forward, and if you play him in his right role, the role he used to play at Leicester, you can really kind of see the benefit. But you seem to think that at the moment he's just not quite at his Leicester form or his Chelsea form, his first season of Chelsea form.
Well, you can't. I don't think you can play Jorginho and Kante in the same midfield. I think.
Did you have Kante over Jorginho? No.
No, because Jorginho can control the game, can control the way Chelsea want to play. They want to play with possession in high areas, and I just think Kante, can he do all that? No. Has he got the technical and the footballing ability to play that, control the game? Probably not, and it's something where he does fall down on. He's still an unbelievable player, and that's why Frank does try and play him and does always try and get him into the side. But on current form and how everything's going, and away at West Brom, do you need an N'Golo Kante? Probably not. And Frank, he has to make big decisions now. He's got a lot of big personalities. He's got World Cup winners. He's got Champions League winners in that dressing room now. And a lot of them haven't gelled yet, and a lot of them are new. So the onus is on Frank to sort of drive the culture and change what he wants to. And it is, look, a game against West Brom, you should be winning, and we should be seeing Werner on the score sheet. We should be seeing Havertz, Mount. And, if they struggle in the first 20 minutes and West Brom get at them and as they can do, sort of get in their faces, could be an interesting afternoon for them. And that's what Frank will be trying to avoid and hoping for a smooth passage.
Quick word on Tottenham. There was a clip of Jose on our Twitter that we put up during the week of him in a press conference. A really kind of fantastic kind of gesture that he did, and it really shows the other side of Jose that we don't normally see. If you want to check it out, it's on our Twitter page. Can he keep the momentum from that second half performance? Did Spurs just click in the second half, or was it purely down to Southampton's defending, or is it a case that Jose can ride this momentum here. And like we mentioned on Monday's show, Dele Alli being left out of the squad, that wasn't talked about as much because they got the win. Do you think that was a kind of turning point for Jose, or do we still need to see them, at home to Newcastle, be able to control the game and win it comfortably?
Yeah, and it probably goes back to the same issues Manchester United have. When you don't have a clear style of play of what you want to do in possession, you're going to struggle to break down these teams. And teams like Newcastle that have a lot of heart and a lot of Premier League experience in that regard to grind out a result. And I'd be very interested to see how they get on, how they play. In terms of if Doherty plays that high position that he likes to play, then the big gaps between him and a Sanchez or a Dyer and all the derailed, that's where Newcastle will get at them. That's where Callum Wilson will probably play in that channel between the right back and centre back if Doherty plays. So Tottenham are probably lacking a Christian Eriksen and someone in that role. And there's a lot of talk. I know Jamie Carragher said Harry Kane could probably play that role if he wanted to. He's got the ability to, but then you lose his goals. And
yeah, I doubt he'll do that.
And it's probably something at home where they will struggle and they'll continue to struggle. Lo Celso, I think, is a really good player, but I think he suits more the box to box. I think he's got a lot of energy to go around the pitch. And I think it's a potential banana skin for Tottenham. Newcastle, played well in the first game away from home, struggled at home against Brighton, and good win in the cup, albeit against Morecambe, a lower league team. But I think it's a potential banana skin for Tottenham, and it's the kind of game Jose needs to win. And it's something that for a while last year they struggled to win against those kind of teams. And it's a similar problem to what Manchester United have.
Yeah, absolutely. And a big thing for Spurs at the moment, they actually do have a big squad, just a lot of players they want to get rid of. But at the moment, with the Europa League and Carabao Cup, and they're kind of waiting almost to qualify for the group stage before they can move a couple of those players on. So we'll talk very quickly on City Leicester. Pep actually, I thought was very interesting in both his pre-match conference and his post-match interview on Sky. He was really focused on that 114 points number. He mentioned it in his pre-match. He said we've 114 points to play for. After the game, 111 points to play for. It almost feels like he's targeting, I guess, somewhere in the region of 90 to 100 points already, because he knows Liverpool, or he's expecting Liverpool to be that good. Your thoughts on this game going forward? Because I guess City at home to Leicester, Jamie Vardy on the counter-attack could be potential banana skin as well.
I think Pep this year, he sort of knows his defence is a little bit ropey. Nathan Ake played there against Wolves. John Stones played. Kind of struggled at times. He's one of those players sometimes you just wish.
He'd break your heart.
Yeah, he would, and sometimes you just wish he moved on and tried to reassess with his career and redevelop, because there is a good footballer in him. He's sort of that kind of frustrating player. But I think Pep this year is solely going to rely on the attacking ability, and in particular the likes of De Bruyne, Phil Foden, Bernardo Silva, Mahrez, Sterling, to get them out of trouble in games. And I think Guardiola won't be afraid to win matches 5-3, 4-3, 6-4, whatever it takes. And I think he'll know he's got the ability going forward that other teams in the league don't have, and he's got the style of play and the structure to beat teams out the gate. And I think this year, knowing his defensive frailties, yes, he's got a good goalkeeper. Yes, he's got Fernandinho, who can play any role really in defence or midfield. But I think this year, I think we could see records broken with the goals. They score 3 the other night.
Despite Aguero being missing.
Yeah, look, Aguero at times, struggles in big games.
Compared to Jesus though,
poor record in Anfield. Jesus is.
But you're talking about the goals. They're going to score a record amount of goals. But if they don't have Aguero for a few weeks of the season or the first 5 or 6 games, will they not potentially struggle there?
Yeah, and if Jesus is struggling, then January comes along. Wouldn't be surprised to see someone come in, but I think De Bruyne, and he'll just create so much for them. And Pep will put such an emphasis on scoring goals that will get them out of trouble this year. And it is a huge year for Jesus. He's had a couple of clear runs at the team, never really done it. I thought he looked sharp against Wolves, and it's probably the brightest I've seen him for a while. And he got his goal in the end as well, which is huge. Yeah,
absolutely. So quick word on Liverpool Arsenal. I can see if Liverpool win this game, having beaten Chelsea away and Arsenal at home in their first 3 games, with City still a game behind, it will really be seen as an early success in the title race. Your thoughts on this? Arteta's kind of built his reputation off the back of the wins against Liverpool by 2, albeit one in the Community Shield, and City as well. How do you think this game's going to go? I guess, it's an interesting game. Monday night, it was a Monday night game last year, wasn't it, that Liverpool beat Arsenal 3-0 with David Luiz making those couple errors. It's kind of a big test already for both sides.
Look, I think for Liverpool, they've had a difficult start, still 6 points from 2, and I think for them it'll be a case of more of the same, just by whatever means get the 3 points and keep the perfect start going. For Arsenal, look, ultimately this year they will be judged on games against the top 6 if they want to sort of break that top 4 and get into the Champions League places again. So it's an early opportunity for them. Played Liverpool a couple of times early in the season now away from home. It's the first time go there without fans. Does Anfield lose that atmosphere, that the dauntingness of it? Absolutely. And teams have gone there with a lot more open and a lot more confidence. We've seen Chelsea leads. Chelsea at the end of last season leads this season. So I think it's an opportunity for Arsenal to take points off Liverpool. But I think Liverpool potentially have too much going forward. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Arsenal put up a good fight defensively more than anything. Whether offensively they'll be able to break down that Liverpool side, I'm not sure.
And just a final word on that, I guess, Thiago, and A, do you reckon they'll start? And B, did you hear what Kenny Cunningham said about him? Can't tackle apparently.
Yeah, Kenny Cunningham was an interesting one.
And I normally don't mind listening to him sometimes, but he does tend to go left field a bit with a couple of opinions.
Yeah, he got away wrong there. I think Thiago is, we said what we said about Thiago, but I think he will start. He was brought on against Chelsea to make the difference, and this year he could make the difference in the title race.
Absolutely. So yeah, moving on to a new section, we're going to try and fit in as much as we can Irish players to watch. We're always very excited, like everyone else, watching Premier League teams, Championship team lineups get released on Twitter an hour before a game and seeing an Irish name come in. And we mentioned on Monday's show about Jimmy Dunn. Sean, you want to pick up on a couple of players? I guess Troy Parrott played for Millwall there during the week.
Yeah, he's back. He's back from an injury with Tom. Actually missed Stephen Kenny's first couple of games, so he could be given a chance against Brentford at home on Saturday. Preston are playing Stoke, so there'll be big Irish contingent in that. Alan Brown, Shawnee Maguire. It's a huge season for Shawnee. He's kind of, from being that prolific goal scorer at Cork, he's kind of struggled at times in the Championship for Preston. So, he mightn't start on the weekend, but if he wants to play for Ireland, he's got to score goals in the Championship. Playing against Stoke, James McLean, he did okay when he came on for Kenny, but whether Kenny has him in his plans going forward, it'll be interesting. But just, I think for a long time there was a real lack of Irish players across in England, even across the Championship and League One, and now there's just so many to think of. You think of Ryan Manning there at QPR.
For those that don't know, Ryan, tell a little bit of listeners.
Yeah, he plays left back or left wing back for Queen's Park Rangers, originally from Galway. He sort of first broke out as a number 10. I remember seeing him against Reading, I think it was, and he scored that day. It was a game on Sky, and he's kind of gone from strength to strength almost, and this new position suits him. Natural left-footed, beautiful footballer, and he hasn't been given a huge amount of opportunities for Ireland because of Endas Stevens. Greg Cunningham was there ahead of him for a while as well. So, keep an eye on Ryan Manning. He's still young. I think he's 23, 24. And Queen's Park Rangers are sort of going places. They're playing Middlesbrough against Neil Warnock's side. Neil Warnock actually had the virus recently as well. So those sort of games will be interesting.
There's any other players to give a shout out there in the Championship League One?
Championship, you've got Kieran Sadler as well, who we've spoken to before at Rotherham.
Friend of the show.
Yeah, and Jason Knight at Derby are playing Blackburn with Darrell Lenhin. So there's a huge amount of Irish players, nearly an Irish player in every game as we look at it, and a few in League One, and Shane Duffy obviously in the SPL has bagged a few goals.
Scottish Premiership they're calling it now apparently. So
yeah, the Scottish Premiership. So look, it's something we'll definitely keep an eye on, performances, and Gavin Bazunu as well, young under 21 international playing for Rochdale. So there's a lot of Irish players to keep an eye out.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll try and recap them as best we can, and obviously we left out all the Premier League players there too, but this kind of really focusing on the Championship and League One style players. But it's great to see, like you mentioned, Sean, and sticking with Irish football, a little bit on the League of Ireland, the state of play there at the moment. I guess as we mentioned on Monday, Shamrock Rovers put up a good fight against Milan. I always find the frustrating thing, and I've said this to you before, I know it's different this year, but frustrating things when the best League of Ireland team that wins the league by the end of the calendar year, so maybe call it October, November, by the time the Champions League comes around next July, they're not quite the best team. It might be the Dundalk's the best team as opposed to the Rovers one year, so it's a bit frustrating. Do you reckon Rovers can go on and win the league this year? And if they do you think they can maintain a good style of play, be the best team in Ireland, that going forward next July or June, July, they'll be ready for the qualifiers and really give it a go at trying to progress to maybe a playoff round in a UEFA Champions League tie?
Yeah, I think the league's a done deal at this stage. 8 points clear of Bohemians, and they just, I think how they're winning games is so impressive. They beat Waterford, who are fourth place, 6-1 the other day. Jack Byrne running the show there, and they've just got a little bit too much quality for everyone else in the league. You think of players going forward: Aaron Green, Jack Byrne, Rona Finn still there. They brought in a few younger lads who are doing well for them. Brandon Kavanagh, Dean Williams as well there. So Rovers have the league wrapped up, and it'll be very interesting to see how they go on next year. Can they keep Jack Byrne? Can they keep the young players they've got going for them at the moment? The Liam Scales, the Neil Farouges that have come back from injury and now kicking off for them. Gary O'Neill in central midfield for them, and they'll walk the league this year, and it's a huge credit to Stephen Bradley and Glenn Cronin there and what they've done at Rovers, and the sort of the legacy they're creating for themselves at 19s, 17s level, 15s, underage, and obviously the B team in the first division. So there's a big pressure on Rovers now going forward, but if they can keep the players, I'm certain they'll dominate Irish football over the next 2 or 3 years. Yeah,
and we wish Dundalk well in tonight's Europa League tie as well. That'll be huge and be something to talk about in the podcast next week if we're looking forward to playoff round there, when, like you mentioned previously on Monday, a team that look kind of gone after their Champions League exit. So a couple of final things before we move into our Premier League predictions. Irish Open on this week, behind closed doors, and there's a good article we've linked in the description there. Greg Allen on a he's a journalist there covering the Irish Open, at just the amount of not only testing that he's had a couple of tests already for coronavirus, but the fact that everyone has a partner that they have to stick with. So it's a bit mad the amount of stuff, and it seems on the European tour is a lot more heavy on this coronavirus testing and coronavirus protocols than the US.
Yeah, and it's been held up in Ballymun, up in Galgorm Castle, and with a hotel on site. It's the reason it's probably not one of the better courses in Ireland, but
it's more for the
for COVID reasons. It's hosted,
everyone stays on site.
It's hosted Challenge Tour events regularly.
I think 19 under was the winning score on it when the Challenge Tour
came. So it's going to be low scoring this time of year as well. Shane Lowry is probably the biggest player in the field. He's committed to it, come back from the US Open, but because of all the testing, he's able to play. For someone like him, the Open champions, the first time he's playing the event as a major champion is huge.
And he's actually seen his family for the first time in 3 months, and he's going to spend the next 5 weeks here after the tournament. So I thought that was a great kind of piece. He's coming home and then spending the next 5 weeks here. So it's a kind of big turn for him, and I guess the no crowd thing might affect him more than other players are.
Yeah, he's struggled for a little bit of form. He's quite patchy. Sometimes he'll have a really good week, and then all of a sudden he'll just lose that momentum. But Harrington as well didn't play in the USPGA for COVID reasons, decided to stay at home with his family. We're going to be interested to see how he does. He's a high enough price as well for it. It's a course that it kind of half suits him. At the moment he's sort of trying to hit the ball as far as he can. It's a course that's sort of receptive to that low scoring. You never know with Harrington, but there's a few other players to keep an eye out for. Richie Ramsey is someone that always does well in an Irish Open. The Scotsman, sort of a European Tour journeyman, has been around for a long time now. And Ryan Fox as well, huge hitter of the golf ball. He's one of the favourites for this week. And George Coetzee as well from South Africa, who has done well at a Masters before. So it's for what it is, it's not the strongest field.
No.
That the Irish Open has ever had. You could argue there's been a couple weaker.
That's very true, actually.
In the time before Rory took over, but at least Lowry's back, and at least Harrington is there. So a couple of major champions. Michael Campbell as well is playing, former major champion.
I didn't realise that, actually.
Yeah.
We went to a couple of Irish Opens. I remember seeing Michael Campbell.
Yeah.
What did the Golf Digest have him they don't say the worst.
He actually
the
won
luckiest US Open champion, or
he actually won an Irish Open as well. So that's why he's able to play. But yeah, look, it is what it is. But it's gonna be good to see it on the telly, good to see it on RTE.
Last thing on Padraig Harrington there, like you mentioned, he's trying to get ball speed. He said in an interview, I think he spent like the best part of 2 months of lockdown, and all the only clubs he hit outside of putting was driving. So, or the driver indoors trying to hit as hard as he can. So I think that won't. I don't know if it'll go well or not, but you never know with these things. So he's basically like trying to do the Bryson on it more than anything.
Yeah, and
he was trying to do the Bryson before it was cool a couple of years back.
You never know with Harrington.
Yeah, you'll know after the first hole, I think.
Yeah,
he just on the course. I know you mentioned it was very easy. He said his first 3 balls he hit off the first tee he couldn't find because the rough was so tall. So that doesn't bode well for himself, but he has a really good record in Irish Open. But a lot of the time he likes to feed off the crowd, so it's going to be a weird Irish Open for the homegrown players. There's actually James Sugru got a tournament invite, the amateur. He played in the US Open. He'll get to play at Augusta in a few months. Gavin Moynihan, Colin Moriarty, who did really well in an Open, and Paul Dunn, who has sort of gone under the radar, won at the British Masters, won the Golf Sixes with Gavin Moynihan. Big tournament for him. Hopefully he can draw off playing in Ireland and get a little bit of something there, because he's struggling at the moment and struggling with his game. And again, he's a really tidy golfer and led the Open, don't forget, as an amateur. So he has the golfing pedigree, and hopefully he can turn it on this week. And yeah, and also look at one of the last Irish golfer to mention, Mark Power there. So he actually came second in Connacht last week. So he's on a bit of form in amateur golf if you want a big price or an outsider to keep an eye on, another Irish. Final thing then before we move on, GA Club Championships, we're going to focus us on the Dublin one because that's kind of what we probably have a bit more of an insight into. Ballyboden, Ballymun. This potential, it's on TG Car 4:30 I think on Sunday, potential to be an absolute cracker, doesn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of people have spoken in the past about Ballymun having 6 or 7 Dublin players and not doing it at enough in terms of the Dublin Senior Football Championship. So they've been really impressive this year, had a good tussle against Crokes. You know, that their senior players sort of stood out for them, the likes of Dean Rock. James McCarthy is just, I don't think there's a player who can match him. Michael Darragh-Macaulay will be in midfield. For Ballyboden, you've got Declan O'Mahony as well, who's been in and around Dublin panels. He'll be playing midfield for Bowden. And then the 2 Basquale brothers are, you know, the danger men for Ballyboden, and we'll be surprised to see Philly Matthews' experience there, and Eben Cornford in goal for Ballymun, who people tip to be the Dublin #1 after Stephen Cluxton. It'll be a really good game. TG Carr as well. Bowden were in the senior hurling final as well, so huge pedigree in that club and in Fairhouse, Knockline and the areas they represent. But Ballymun, you know, I will be favourites slightly. I think the sheer weight of the amount of Dublin players they've had and underage Dublin players, but it's a big opportunity for Ballyboden to cause a bit of a shock, and they certainly have an awful amount of football going forward, and a lot of players who have sort of been in and around the Dublin panels but not played a huge amount of games, the likes of Darren Nelson, Robbie McDade. So, you know, really good club footballers. So Bowden, you know, they've done well in club football, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them beat Ballymun. But, you know, if Team Rock gets going and James McCarthy gets going, then Ballyboden could have no answer to it. But it should be a very good game on TG Carr, and the Dublin Senior Football final always does produce a lot of big moments and big games, and hopefully this is one of them. And because it's not, there's no Leinster in All Ireland, it's almost a bigger game, which I guess adds to the occasion. So that's the review roundup done. We've exciting segment coming up here. We recorded a little bit earlier on, so we're taking Cian out of the firing line for the predictions, just kind of add a bit of spice to it. So every week we're going to get 2 people on to go head to head. The winner stays on, basically. So we've asked James Moe and Cian Hannigan to come on first. They're predicting the correct scores in all 10 Premier League games. You get 3 points if you get that correct score, and if you just get the right results you get 1 point. So we'll keep up to date over the weekend, but for now let's get to our chat with James and Cian.
My mind's gone running. My mind's gone running. I want love, but I'm scared I'll have to give it away. I need a lift up sometimes.
So delighted to welcome to the first episode of our predictions, Cian Hannigan and James Moe. Lads, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
How you doing, lads?
You're basically the guinea pigs here to see if this works, and we're
Well, hold on. I got a bit of abuse from James here for the first week for my prediction of Everton to beat Tottenham the first game week, and it came true, and I didn't hear anything else back from him. So I'm interested to hear a couple of interesting games. So I wonder what you're going to say, James.
I've got my Arsenal rant going later on, so we'll see.
Right, we'll start with you, Cian. Brighton, Manchester United prediction.
I'm going to go for 2-2 in this one.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I've been impressed with Brighton so far. So
I was going to go 2-1 to United. I feel like Brighton, they were great last week against Newcastle, weren't they? Going 3-0.
Yeah.
But Newcastle were shocking. So I think United will be back to their best here.
I thought you were going to say some other word after I had a chat with you before the show. Come on. Begin with SH. Stick with you, Cian, for the next one. It's 3 o'clock Saturday. Crystal Palace, Everton, top of the table clash.
yeah, I think this is the hardest game to predict out of them all. I'm going 2-1 Everton, but like it could easily go the other way. Like
Jim.
Someone's always got to go down. Everton going to win this game 2-0. James Rodriguez, unbelievable player.
Yeah, it's
2-0
actually,
Everton.
like I said, it's one of the hardest games to predict because no one would have predicted Crystal Palace to beat Southampton at home, and now Everton 2 from 2 as well. So very interesting to see what happens there. James Rodriguez, the Wilfred Zaha show. You never know.
Yeah, it'll be a great game. If we're going to go to the 5:30 game, Jim, you're going to be first here. West Brom versus Chelsea.
I'm going to take a tactics sport one on this one, Dan. I don't like Chelsea. 1-0 West Brom. Next game.
Who scores at West Brom?
The lad who left for West Ham, the young lad.
Diagana.
That's the one.
Cian.
I'm going 2-0 to Chelsea on this one. I thought West Brom were going to be a surprise package, but based on the first 2 games, it's not looking great there. So I'm going to have to go backtrack on that one.
Yeah, you said it to me before the season, and I was kind of like, you nearly sold it to me, and I'd already done my predictions, and then as soon as 2 games in, I'm with you 100% there. But look, it'll be interesting to see how they get on, like at home against a big side, like.
But they have a bit of quality going for it, so that will always keep them in it. Pereira, Diagana. Hopefully they can just maybe, if they got a goal scorer, you never know. But
yeah, I don't know if they have enough goals in the front line now, but like they're going to leak goals as well at the same time. So
Okay, moving on to the 8 o'clock Saturday night game. Burnley versus Southampton. Southampton in shocking form. I really fancy them at the start of the year. A bit nervous about how they're going to get on. Jim, what's your prediction here? Burnley, Southampton.
For me, these 2 teams are equally as crap. Southampton were shocking against Spurs last week.
They were.
Hurricanes and now they're running rush. I'll go 2-0 draw down.
Good game. Cian.
I'm going 2-0 Burnley on this one. I think Southampton will come good. They've had a really poor start, but Burnley are just solid. Like even despite missing Tarkowski and me there, I think that I don't know if they're back or not, but if they are, they're solid eventually. And even without, I think they're still well drilled.
yeah, it's actually interesting because we saw Jimmy Dunn play and Kevin Long, so there was 2 Irishmen at the back. Tarkowski has been linked with a huge move to West Ham, so whether they play him there, and Ben Mee's injured at the moment, so huge chance for Burnley there.
Yeah, despite shifting 4, I still think against Leicester, I think it was, that they still have the defensive nous, I suppose, like, you know.
Yeah, and they were a game behind, so it's already a big game for Burnley, so they're not playing catch-up. So we're moving on to Sunday's games. Bit of a rivalry here over the last couple of years. Sheffield United, when they're in Championship, Sheffield United at home to Leeds United. Jim, what's your prediction here?
I've been very impressed with Leeds. They've actually already scored more goals than Norwich did in 2020 in the Premier League. I saw that stat the other day. I'm a big fan of the cost of the midfielder. I'm going to go 1-0 to Leeds here.
What was that stat?
They have Leeds more goals in 2020 in the Premier League than Norwich did.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And I kind of spoke about how they could potentially struggle, but Bamford has started well. They've got goals from midfield, like I said, in Costa, and we're yet to really see Rodrigo shine. So, Cian, what's your prediction for this one?
I'm going 2-1 Sheffield United. I'm kind of in the boat here with you, Sean. don't really fancy them too much. I think they'll be safe, but I don't think like they're going to be as comfortable as people make them out to be. I think Sheffield United have been lucky so far, and I fancy them here to get the result.
And Sheffield United have actually beaten them in the last couple of Yorkshire derbies, so it's actually the only Yorkshire derby in the league. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go. So Jim, going to your beloved Tottenham in the 2 o'clock game on Sunday against Newcastle. Who's going to win that one?
4-0 Spurs. Son, Kane, everybody. So also get scoring this time. He doesn't get many goals, but he's gotten goals this time. And I feel like Lucas Moore is going to get another one. So 4 different goal scorers, 4 goals. 4-0 next.
Cian.
I've gone 3-1 Newcastle here. Listen, you look at Newcastle one of the lane, or one of the lane anymore. They won away to Spurs last year. Joe Linton even got a goal in that game. That's what you're up against here. And you know, I fancy Joe Linton to make another one here now.
I agree with you, Kane. I actually fancy Newcastle here. Tottenham have always struggled against the big, high defensive block, and I think Newcastle just know how to score on the break. Callum Wilson, not Joe Linton, Almiron, Hendricks playing there now, so it's going to be interesting to see. But I fancy Tottenham to potentially slip up against Newcastle.
And Newcastle won 7-0 against Morecambe.
Joe Linton got 2 as
I was
well.
just going to say that, Cian. Yeah, on you. That was a great segue, but you beat me to it. Exactly that. So, yeah, that's a good, that's interesting. So, listen, 4 games left. Manchester City, Leicester, 4:30 game Sunday.
Cian first.
I think it's going to be a great game. To be honest with you, plenty of goals in it. I'm going 3-2 to City in this one.
Jim?
I was going to 3-1 to City. I just don't think Leicester is as good as people think they are. Man City are all better all over the pitch, except maybe Vardy. Vardy be better than Jesus, so I'm going to go 3-1.
Vardy loves a goal against Manchester City though, and against the Guardiola. So I think Vardy could do the damage away from home as well. Going to be an interesting game.
Will be interesting if Leicester are this season can carry on the start of last season's form, because they haven't really been tested yet in the first 2 games. But yeah, big game, an interesting game. So we've a game on Sunday at 7:00. West Ham versus Wolves. Cian?
Again, plenty of goals in this one. I think I'm going 4-2 to Wolves here. Been impressed with them so far. I thought they struggled, to be honest with you, considering they've lost Doherty, and I know Johnny's not fit either. So I thought they're going to struggle, but yeah, been impressed. And West Ham, I think, are in for a long season. Well, unless they sack David Moyes, I don't rate him anyway. So the sooner they get him out and get someone else in, the better.
And of course, he's got the coronavirus as well, which doesn't help things. Jim?
I went 3-1 Wolves. I just think Wolves are so good. I know West Ham are absolutely shocking from not just their players, but their board is all over the golf. Big fan of Podence. He was played against Spurs for Olympiacos last season. Thought he was unbelievable. Then he went to Wolves. Big fan. 3-1 to Wolves.
Yeah, and you're ahead of the trend because I spotted you had him in draft when I went looking for him as a free agent there during the week. Yeah, so I'm very, very impressed, to be fair. Cian, we're going to go to you and then Jim for the last one. So Cian, Fulham at home to Villa.
I think this has a nil all written all over it. Drab game. No, serious lack of quality for both teams up top. I think Fulham usually, like, with league goals, they won't keep many clean sheets, but I just don't think Villa have the quality either to break them down. Yeah, I won't be watching this game. Let's put it that way.
Jim?
I just think it's going to be 2 teams who'll be playing the championship next season. So, how much championship game, isn't it?
Yeah, so 1-1, you said?
Yeah.
This is a big game where Villa kind of need the Jack Grealishes of this world and the Ollie Watkins, what they paid the big money for in terms of Watkins, £30 million to really get them over the line. And this is a relegation 6-pointer, and it's already 3 games into the season. It feels weird saying it, but it's a big game for both teams, Kane, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree, and I think Villa will like kind of over the course of the season get better. I mean, they've had some good signings, as like the Watkins coming in. They've got Bertrand for Traore now, and signing up Mings and Grealish is huge on longer contracts now. So I think they will get better, but I just think at the moment they're not quite at the level.
Oh, listen, so the big game of the weekend arguably is Monday Night Football, 8:00. Jim, you bigged up your Arsenal prediction earlier on in the show. So Liverpool versus Arsenal. Jim?
I just don't think there's any way aren't losing this game. Like Arsenal, all they've done this summer is sign a centre back, all their best goalkeeper, signed the Chelsea reject, and overpaid Aubameyang. So I don't know how they think they're going to go from 8th to 4th to on that. 3 Liverpool, Thiago masterclass incoming, easy.
I can't argue with anything you said there. To be fair, you kind of worded them well, albeit slightly biased reporting. Cian?
First of all, there's no way Arsenal paid Aubameyang too much. He's worth every penny. But I'm going with my heart here, as I always do when it comes to Arsenal. I might be giving Jim a free hit. I think Arsenal haven't got a result away to the big side in about 5 years, something like that. I'm going 2-2. Just biased, but I actually believe that we're going somewhere. So we need to pick up a result away somewhere. So why not do it at the champions?
Exactly, and at the end of last season, Arteta did pick up results against Liverpool, against Manchester City, Chelsea in the FA Cup final. And the one thing that's been talked a lot about Arteta is he's brought a resilience to this Arsenal team. So it's a huge test already 3 games into the season to see how they cope. But it definitely, game of the weekend, best to last, Monday Night Football.
Yeah, we've beaten them twice now. So albeit one of them was a penalty shootout in the Queen of Shield, which is, doesn't count. But we've had 2 good games against them now, so there's no reason why we can't put up a fight, especially with no fans there at Anfield.
Jim, lad, final thoughts on that?
No chance. 3-0, easy. Liverpool, way better. All over the pitch.
As we explained at the top of the show, it will be 3 points for a correct score, 1 point for the right result, and then winner stays on, lads. So we'll be talking to one of you next week. Best of luck. And thanks for coming on, Cian and Jim.
See See you next week,
All
lads.
the best, lads. Look.
You got in there before you get in. Cheers, guys.
My mind's gone running. I want love, but I'm scared I'll have to give
Interesting
it away.
predictions there from the lads. Some good insight. The lads have put their neck on the line. So no hate, please. As be nice as possible here. The lads have come on. And if you do like to want to be on the show for next week, and there is a spot open, do get in touch with ourselves, either our own social medias or at Tackling Sport. And if you did, you have any ideas for the show as well, that's where you'll find us. So yeah, so exciting weekend of sport. We're looking forward to it. We'll be back on Monday to review it all. All that's left to say is we really appreciate everyone listening to the show. We're having great fun doing it, and we'd like to continue doing it. So please follow and subscribe on whatever you're listening to, so you never miss an episode. And that's really it for this week, Sean. Busy week. So all that's left to say is goodbye from yourself.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the sport.
Take advantage and be happy.